Heyo, I've noticed, and I'm sure you've noticed, that when a creator who posts opinionated content gets backlash or even just criticism for an opinion they have, a common excuse is you took me out of context by the creator, or you took them out of context by their fans who are trying to defend them. I've even used this phrase in my ethical gooning video referencing the super rare, uncommon practice of religious people taking something out of context to fuel their interpretation of a message. And sometimes a common rebuttal will be, there's no context that could justify what they said or did. And yes, that's true, context doesn't always excuse something, but it almost always explains it. And I think if you truly want to get the full picture, you should always care about listening to the context. Most of the things that I've been seeing are people having the context right in front of them, but still not caring. Like I saw this video criticizing Child Protective Services for warning parents before they come for an inspection, because abusive parents will be able to hide everything before they actually come, and scared children will not be able to speak up even when CPS is there. So the solution should be that CPS should be like health inspectors. They show up, show their IDs, and then investigate. Then I saw this comment that was like, unintelligent people complain that CPS is incompetent and should make random unannounced visits, which I agree they should, yet simultaneously cry and beg for privacy from the government. So which is it? Are governments and organizations created to monitor to protect others / the general public, CPS, FBI, CIA, etc, 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 allowed to monitor citizens and deeply track and monitor those who are threats or not? I just have to laugh at the irony. What? We're talking about CPS. I don't understand why they brought up other government protection services when they're extremely irrelevant to the issue of incompetent services bypassing child abuse. Even when the creator responded by restating the point of the video, the commenter continued to respond with, so CPS shouldn't exist, period? Hey, I don't like when IHOP leaves the butter on the pancakes and lets it sit at the prep windows, so then by the time the pancakes get to my table, they've become soggy. So IHOP shouldn't exist? Like, what kind of mental gymnastics do you have to do to get to that point? Throughout the rest of the thread, when people are confused on what they're talking about, they become even more defensive and bring up points that weren't even being argued in the first place. I genuinely couldn't tell if they were trying to rage bait or not, but I don't know if people put this much effort into rage bait. This kind of interaction is probably like the perfect sum up of every internet argument ever. People see a thing, interpret it wrong, and won't just surrender their point. Like, it's funny to be wrong. You aren't a bad or stupid person for misinterpreting something unless you weaponize it against others even after they've corrected you. After I expressed my hatred for Matt Walsh, I've had a lot of people in my comments give me more reasons to hate him outside of telling people that you shouldn't teach your young children about consent. But as much as I love more reasons to hate him, it's even better to hate him for reasons that are real. A couple of people kept quoting when he said,
girls between the ages of like 17 and 24 is when they're technically most fertile.
But they kept paraphrasing it by saying he wants to impregnate teenage girls, and within the context, that's not what he's saying. Even outside of the context, what he said was technically true. From a strictly biological standpoint, female fertility does tend to peak in the late teens to mid-20s. Within the context though, the conversation was around the idea that teen pregnancy isn't wrong, it's unwedded teen pregnancy. That part is factually wrong. Teen pregnancy data are only based on the mother's age, and a lot of research shows that male partners of pregnant teenage girls are adult men. Sometimes it's ethical with 17 and 18 or 19, but it was found that 2/3 of the teen mothers aged 15 to 17 had partners who were aged 20 or older. I think we'd run into a bit of an ethical problem if we were to make these teenage girls marry their adult male partners. But if we want to be completely fair, even if both parties were teenagers and they got married, they would still be at higher risk of poverty, lower educational and economic opportunities, and poor health outcomes for both them and their child. Marriage doesn't counter the likely negative consequences of teen pregnancy, especially since teen marriages also lead to higher divorce rates. So was Matt Walsh an idiot for supporting this point at one time or another, since this conference wasn't ever supposed to be public? Yes, 100%, because his message wasn't based on actual social facts that matter when it comes to social problems. But is Matt Walsh a groomer for stating that specific useless fact? No, he's not. Quoting a biological fact is not inherently an endorsement of any behavior associated with that fact. Biological information is just neutral, and it only becomes controversial or problematic depending on how it's used, the context it's presented in, and the intentions behind bringing it up. Like if someone cited this fertility data to argue for increased access to reproductive health care, comprehensive sex education, or contraception for young women, because even when women that young get pregnant, they're more likely to die from giving birth because their bodies aren't mature enough to handle childbirth. That would be socially responsible and evidence-based application of that fact, because then it uses the biological reality not to promote or normalize normalize teenage pregnancy, but to ensure that people most at risk of unintended pregnancy are better informed and supported. I know that people will argue that the specifics don't matter. There's still a bad person made a bad choice or represent bad things, so who cares about the context? But when you claim to stand for justice, integrity, or equality, your values have to be rooted in truth. When I'd see countless streams, posts, and even small segments shedding light on that small clip of him saying that specifically, I'd always have to kick myself because everyone calling him out was ignoring the actual point he was making, which means if anyone who does support Matt was watching, they will get to scoff and laugh at the person making the video because they have to make shit up to make Matt seem like a bad person, even though he makes himself look like a bad person perfectly fine on his own. Matt Walsh does represent bad things, so you don't have to lie to bring up that point. Even when I recently cited his clip from a couple years ago where he said,
I violate my kids' consent all the time, in the sense that I force them to do things they don't want to do.
I added the context that he was comparing telling a child that they have to do chores, like cleaning up their own toys, to telling a kid that they have to sit on someone's lap. It sounds like he's a groomer outside of that context, but he still kind of low-key sounds like a groomer within the context too. Matt is still an idiot within the context of that clip, because if his wife had forced him to do laundry because he's never f***ing done them.
Your wife said dishes, and she also threw in he doesn't know how to do the laundry. Again, being thrown.
But also then forced him to sit on another man's lap. Do you think he would still consider it the same? Probably not, because chores fall under responsibilities which help children develop life skills, a sense of contribution, and autonomy, while physical affection involves a child's bodily autonomy and personal consent, which, when forced, teaches them that their discomfort doesn't matter if it makes adults happy. I am so upset that I have to explain that because a pushing 40-year-old man doesn't believe children deserve the right to say no to family. You can hate on conservatives that pretend to be smart with even less smart conservative fans all you like, but if you complain about him to me, I want your facts to be based in reality. I keep coming across content online where people seem way too eager to react without considering the actual blaring context. Like this one video I saw of this very clearly staged video of this guy doing CrossFit style pull-ups, and then a woman in front of him starts doing muscle-ups. I've gooned to better acting, so I expected for people to notice the infomercial level acting skills, but instead I saw comments like, and that was the sound of fragile male ego crashing. He was like, what am I even trying to do here? I can't do what she does. What the fuck? Why do I even train? The caption even says, I can't tell if he's upset or if he just fell in love. Hashtag woman, hashtag girl power, hashtag strong women, hashtag women who lived, hashtag women's empowerment. Are any of these people alive? Like, is this the dead internet theory that I've been hearing about where everyone on the internet is just bots? I'm pretty sure this video is a repost and this video was just to promote the reposter's music, but I also saw that she has feminist in her bio, and I may just be a sensitive hater for generic boring content, but I also really don't like when I see girl boss surface level liberal feminism that literally offers nothing. Fuck you, man. I bet you didn't know that women can do things. As I said, I don't know if I'm just being a judgmental bastard or if my annoyance is actually valid, but I think the reason it annoys me so much is mostly because it connects to a larger problem of performative feminism that I see a lot among cis straight white female creators. I see so many creators use stories from 5, 10, even 15 years ago and present them as if they just happened, or worse, they strip away actual important context to make the story more black and white and more outrage inducing. Like this one where this woman made a video about how there was some meeting at some White House for women's health and not a single woman was there. How upsetting, I said to myself, until I googled it and realized that's not true. The closest thing I could find was from 2017, so 8 years ago, and it was a picture of a meeting at the White House that showed only men. There was one woman there, but she was just Trump's advisor. But the actual important thing was that this meeting wasn't about women's health. It was about discussing the healthcare bill, and people were upset because the bill included decisions on maternity services, and more women should have been there to come to a fair agreement. Yes, I agree that more women should have been there, but the initial claim is extremely misleading, and that claim is everywhere on TikTok. Most of them not including the fact that this story was from 8 years ago. I don't understand why these sorts of feminists would lie, or at least not fact check the rumors they hear about this sort of thing, when there's so many issues like domestic violence, like when that dad from India shot his daughter 5 times, killing her because he was consumed by deep personal insecurity and shame due to the villagers allegedly mocking him for living off his daughter's income because she had a successful tennis career and started her own academy, and when he allegedly demanded that she close her academy, he felt humiliated that she refused, so he murdered her. Or issues like reproductive rights, like when that brain-dead woman from Georgia who was kept from rotting so the hospital could remove the fetus from her dead body because the state abortion laws didn't allow her or her family to make that decision themselves, even when life support laws would have allowed them that, which quite literally means that brain-dead people have more rights than women in reproductive health. Or other issues like voting rights, like how the SAVE Act would disproportionately burden 69 million married women, 4 million married men, trans people who've legally changed their name, and low-income Americans who can't afford passports, meaning a ton of women won't be able to vote. All those stories are actual, real, current, and unresolved issues that desperately need attention from feminists, not some bullshit joke that's been telephoned into fake news. When people find out that you lied about a certain cause, it makes them question everything because they feel betrayed. Maybe women aren't really oppressed. Maybe feminism is just a scam. And that truly sucks because feminism is valid. Women are oppressed in different ways, in different places, and to different degrees. But if everything people hear is just half-truths and recycled outrage, they'll stop caring, which is how people get radicalized into anti-feminism. I was overhearing a video that my partner was listening to while he was also watching reels on his phone, but I kept arguing out loud at every point that this creator was making while I got continuously annoyed at her. And then my partner would be confused because he wasn't paying attention to the video because he was also playing YouTube playables. I would repeat those points to you, but I could just sum it up as, oh my god, she has no idea what she's talking about, and I've been successfully SJW rage baited. In this video, she says that she agrees with basic women's rights, which is good. I think every woman should be for the basics of feminism, even if they aren't that invested with feminist topics. But then she criticizes what she calls modern feminism by mixing together completely different types of feminism and treating them like they're all the same thing. She seems to think that there's only two types of feminism: the good old feminism, which coincidentally was mainly for white middle-class women, and bad modern feminism, which is just whatever she's seen online that annoys her. But she leaves out so much context for what she's actually defending and criticizing, and also why people believe in them. Like her voicing her annoyance that modern feminism supports sex work while at the same time not supporting housewives is just wrong. She showed the thumbnail of this video by Ali Sunvia when she was talking about trad wives, but I was surprised that this creator would reference Olivia's video because Olivia was way more thoughtful with her take on feminist views of trad wives and stay-at-home girlfriends than what this creator's using a screenshot of her thumbnail for. Olivia actually goes into the tension between respecting women's autonomy while still acknowledging structural constraints that lead women down the path of choosing to be a housewife. It's true that she doesn't dismiss women who choose traditional roles as brainwashed, but this video doesn't support the claim that feminists dismiss or hate housewives. It's typically liberal and choice feminism that supports women being sex workers because they support women's autonomy to make their own decisions, which equally support women being traditional housewives if they want to, because they believe that women should have the freedom to decide what's best for their own lives without judgment or coercion. Both liberal and choice feminists support empowering women with more options, while still respecting some of their choices, even if those choices might seem to align with traditional gender roles. Radical feminism doesn't support women being sex workers because they believe those choices reinforce patriarchal structures that benefit men at women's expense, which equally doesn't support women being traditional housewives because they believe that traditional wife roles perpetuate women's economical dependence and domestic subordination. Both intersectionals and radicals also support the idea that even when some women choose these roles, they're still operating within a patriarchal environment that limits their real options. Olivia's video was a great way of showcasing that feminists can grapple with difficult questions about structure versus agency without falling into either patronizing paternalism or uncritical choice feminism. So if this creator did watch Olivia's video, then she either completely missed the nuanced points about autonomy and structural critique, or she deliberately ignored them to maintain her simplified narrative. By including Olivia's thumbnail alongside her anti-feminist argument, it just seems like she's implicitly suggesting broader feminist agreement with her position, when feminist thinkers like Olivia are actually working to resolve the exact opposing views that this creator is complaining about. There are so many aspects about feminism that deserve feedback, and I know that maybe I'm reaching. Maybe that regurgitating conservative propaganda isn't the purpose of this video, but it just feels so glaringly obvious for me that she treats modern feminism as if it's a monolithic cringe movement that falls over its own ass while she, the Chad, laughs at it. In reality, feminism has always had many different subsets with different ideas, with thoughtful people grappling with complex issues. But of course, when you dumb it down to the most controversial or extreme examples to make a case on how we should abandon the idea, then of course your version of feminism is going to be laughable. Almost like other media outlets where they purposely present certain movements as dangerous or harmful so they can paint their conservative dogma as concerned criticism. Feminism used to be good, but now those feminists were racist. The pure feminism that she brings up multiple times, the feminism that she wants to go back to, were still problematic that modern feminists are trying to fix. What is it with conservative sounding arguments always missing the good old old days when those days were literally just better for white people. I wonder what that pattern is about. That reminds me, I also saw this tweet that used a photo of a black man standing outside a window claiming it showed an African American trying to someone by smashing a window in Europe to paint the narrative that women and children are not safe in Europe. But the fact checker corrected the post saying that the image was from 2016, where a man was killed by his ex after breaking into her house in Philly. The comments under a post pointing out how the tweet was obviously made in bad faith were filled with people saying that it doesn't matter to point out the truth because the context is still bad. So rape is okay? Literally no one said that. What are you talking about? Okay, so it basically happened in the US and not Europe. What difference does it make? How are you defending an intruder? Just confess at this point. Yes, you're right. The context is still bad. But the difference is that they lied about it when they didn't need to. The original incident was already serious on its own, but they thought it wasn't bad enough or recent enough, so they lied about it with a new false setting, a new false motive, and a new false story to push a narrative that stokes fear and fuels racism. And I know that to be valid because most of the comments didn't argue about the fact that OP lied, they just began to accuse the reposter of defending criminals, and since their outrage obviously wasn't rooted in racism, the rest of the comments just happened to bring up where the account was based. That's a very weird pattern that I see a lot when it comes to racist facts. Whenever I see right-wing content creators talking about racism, they always use this statistic that black people commit 50% of the crimes. Except if you're not a racist idiot, you would probably understand that that statistic is for homicides arrests specifically, where black people accounted for 55.9% of all homicides arrests in 2019, with whites at 41.1% and other cases at 3% in cases where the race was known. Notice how I said arrests and not actual committed or convictions because these statistics don't show if they were found guilty or not. But sure, we all know that police always give black people the benefit of the doubt when it comes to arrests. Black people make up 13% of the population, so if we accounted the entire population of black people, only 0.05% of that population have been arrested for a violent crime. In the same FBI data table, it also weirdly states that 69.4% of everyone arrested were white, and only 26.6% were black, while 4% were other races. Oh my god, that's so weird. I wonder why conservative media always leaves that part out. Must be a mistake, you know? I don't think the party that threatens to feed Hispanic people to alligators that also previously referred to black babies as alligator bait would do that. If you want to weaponize statistics for which kinds of people commit the most crime, you could also say that white people commit the most crime than any other race in America, and use that vague fact to say that white people should get deported back to Europe, or that middle class people commit more crimes than the rich and 1%ers, and use that vague fact to say that the rich billionaires are justified in taking advantage of the lower class so they can have their third private jet, or maybe that cis people commit more assault and use that vague fact to say that we should stop letting cis people around our children and that they should only be allowed to go to the bathroom at home, not in public spaces where people would be uncomfortable with them being in there. It sounds ridiculous, right? Because there's context of why those things happen, and even if there wasn't, it doesn't mean we dehumanize an entire demographic off of those percentages. People should always be willing and wanting to seek out the context for everything, even when it's inconvenient for the preferred narrative. I've seen some progressive influencers mocking conservative haters, saying that they'll say, "Where's the context? Show us the context," while arguing that there's no context to be shown to make whatever happened or what was said appropriate. But I, as a progressive hater, still want the context too. The White House official account publicly stated that they want to kill a group of people. Okay, that's weird. Is it towards a certain someone's administration, or mayhaps a group of the most powerful, predatory, and rich people? Or is it towards the middle and low class who happen to be non-white? Because I guarantee your reaction would be, and should be, different based on the context. If you feel like your opinion is the right one, then you should be able to hear and give the entire situation without faulting. Before the American election happened, I kept seeing so many people bring up out-of-context clips for both candidates that just made me wish so much that people would look past their biases just a little bit and not just blindly believe whatever they wanted online. Like, I remember seeing progressives labeling Trump as ableist because he seemingly mocked a disabled interviewer. Except he didn't do that, because he does that arm thing all the time, even way before he even knew of that interviewer. You can stop feeling bad for that interviewer. What's worse though, because at least with Trump, if you show the whole video, that's not the whole context. You have to go searching for the context that Trump just does that with his arms whenever he's mocking anybody. But when Kamala Harris seemingly responded to a comment at a rally with, "Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally," that out of context clip spread like wildfire. I saw thread after tweet, viral comment after TikTok saying, "I can't believe she would respond like that while trying to get the votes of Christians." Except if you play the full clip, it goes like this.
We remember Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade, and they did as he intended. Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street.
She was giving a speech about being pro-choice, and there were pro-force people in the crowd, and since lies, lies, lies was the only thing that you could hear from the close recording of where she was standing, I assume she didn't hear him yell, "Jesus is Lord," after he had already begun to get kicked out because he was causing a disturbance. I could not believe the amount of Christians that were falling for this, because Christians would never blindly believe something that fuels their agenda. They need to read their Bibles again, man. All humans lie. It says it right there. It's not just the humans that you disagree with. And yes, I know it says men, but the Bible's context is talking about all humankind. I know not everyone seeks out the context for everything, especially when most people don't even know that there's more context to even know. And I don't blame people for being misinformed, because as much as I could say, you guys are a bunch of stupid chodes, Google and ChatGPT is free, except Google sends a shit amount of money to Israel that oppresses Palestinians, and ChatGPT takes a shit amount of energy and water, while also is trained off of stolen human labor. And both give out a lot of misinformation, and sometimes other search engines just straight up don't give you what you're looking for. So, you know, pick your poison. It's hard to keep up with real information. It's hard to even differentiate if the bunnies on the trampoline are even real. Like, I'm not asking everyone to be a scholar that spends 10 minutes on every TikTok and nitpicks everything to make sure it's real or not, but just, you know, keep an open mind. I'm not trying to tell you that you have to constantly listen or argue with people that are trying to rage bait you, because part of seeking context intelligently means knowing when to disengage from people who aren't actually interested in mutual understanding. I don't think that searching for context or even just learning about the context when it's presented to you means that you have to defend bad behavior. It's just always good to understand the full situation before judging, and it's okay to change your mind. Everyone has an agenda, everyone has a bias, except for me, because I know everything and my opinion is the right one. Laters!